Summary. Demand. The quantity of a good or service demanded by consumers depends on their tastes. The price of a good, the price of goods that are substitutes and complements consumers' income, information, government regulations, and other factors. The law of demand, which is based on observation, says that demand curves slope downward. The higher the price, the less quantity is demanded, holding constant other factors that affect demand. A change in price causes a movement along the demand curve. A change in income, taste, or another factor that affects demand other than price causes a shift of the demand curve. To derive a total demand curve, we horizontally sum the demand curves of individuals or types of consumers or countries. That is, we add the quantities demanded by each individual at a given price to determine the total quantity demanded. 2. Supply. The quantity of a good or service supplied by firms depends on the price, the firm's costs, government regulations, and other factors. The market supply curve need not slope upward, but it usually does. A change in price causes a movement along the supply curve. A change in the price of an input or government regulation causes a shift in the supply curve. The total supply curve is the horizontal sum of the supply curves for individual firms. 3. Market equilibrium. The intersection of the demand curve and the supply curve determines the equilibrium price and quantity in the market. Market forces, actions of consumers and firms drive the price and quantity to the equilibrium levels if they are initially too low or too high. 4. Shocking the equilibrium. Comparative statics. A change in an underlying factor other than price causes a shift of the supply curve or the demand curve, which alters the equilibrium. Comparative statics is the method that economists use to analyze how variables controlled by consumers and firms, such as price and quantity, react to a change in environmental variables, such as prices of substitutes and complements, income, and prices of inputs. 5. Elasticities. An elasticity is the percentage change in a variable in response to a given percentage change in another variable, holding all other relevant variables constant. The price elasticity of demand, epsilon, is the percentage change in the quantity demanded in response to a given percentage change in price. A 1% increase in price causes the quantity demanded to fall by epsilon percent. Because demand curves slope downward according to the law of demand, the elasticity of demand is always negative. The price elasticity of supply, nu, is the percentage change in the quantity supplied in response to a given percentage change in price. Given estimated elasticities, we can forecast the comparative statics effects of a change in taxes or other variables that affect the equilibrium. 6. Effects of a sales tax. The two common types of sales taxes are ad valorem taxes, by which the government collects a fixed percentage of the price paid per unit, and specific taxes, by which the government collects a fixed amount of money per unit sold. Both types of sales taxes typically raise the equilibrium price and lower the equilibrium quantity. Both usually also raise the price consumers pay, and lower the price suppliers receive. So consumers do not bear the full burden or incidence of the tax. The effects on quantity, price, and the incidence of the tax that falls on consumers depend on the demand and supply elasticities. In competitive markets, the impact of a tax on equilibrium, quantities, prices, and the incidence of the tax is unaffected by whether the tax is collected from consumers or producers. 7. Quantity supplied need not equal quantity demanded. The quantity supplied equals the quantity demanded in a competitive market if the government does not intervene. However, some government policies, such as price floors or ceilings, cause the quantity supplied to be greater or less than the quantity demanded, leading to persistent excesses or shortages. When to use the supply and demand model. That's for number 8. The supply and demand model is a powerful tool to explain what happens in a market or to make predictions about what will happen if an underlying factor in a market changes. However, this model is applicable only in competitive markets, which are markets with many buyers and sellers. Firms sell identical goods, participants have full information, transaction costs are low, and firms can easily enter and exit